off with his head. Ooh! Hello, my friends. Bella Maldonado here. Gonna try to do the hashtag Do You Even Court, which was started by Levi over at Masculine Intuition Reading. And it sounded like a lot of fun. You get to hear everybody's approach to the court cards and how they read them. Some people read the court cards as personality types, as people, as energies. So I thought it would be fun to kind of share how I work with them. And there was actually one video that I saw by CoyoteTheGrey who said that he got this idea from, I think he said it was Tarot Oracle, which was actually a similar approach that I take with the court cards. And he kind of talked about other ways. So I wanted to dig a little further into this approach that we share, which is looking at the court cards as different job functions. So the way I do it, and I think it'll be especially helpful for people who, work in different industries, kind of do the tarot reading as a side, but have a full-time job doing something else. And, for those of you who work in the corporate world, I can give you an example of how I associate the different courts with the different levels within a corporation. But you can also apply this to pretty much any job, any industry. So just to start off with my example of working in the corporate world, right? So if you work in a cubicle, have that 9 to 5, 8 to 6, maybe even later job, you might be able to relate to this. So when we look at pages, I like to compare them to the interns in the office, right? So the interns are there coming straight out of school, they're young kids, and their job really is to learn how the company works. And they're not necessarily getting paid. Some of them might be getting paid, but a lot of them are doing this for free because this isn't their full-time job, right? They're learning on the job. This is their opportunity to learn how the company works, to learn how the different functions within the company work. And another thing that they tend to do is they get everybody's coffee. Like, okay, we'll get the intern to do it, right? So the intern is kind of the messenger. He's the guy who picks up the packages, picks up the mail, and buys everyone coffee. So when you learn about pages, right, pages are usually young children, they're students, they're learning. So a way to think about this in modern times is to think of them as interns in the office. And I find that especially helpful because, we're not living in a world where we have pages and we have knights and queens and kings. Especially here in the States, it's kind of hard to relate to that kind of structure. But if you're used to working within a company, sometimes these more modern roles are more helpful. So pages for me are interns, right? So if we go up the chain, right, I like to, let me bring down these pages and bring over our knights. They're next on the list, right? So we move up in the organization and you're promoted to VP, to vice president. And if you're in a company that has several thousand people, VP isn't a very high title, but it's definitely one of the first important ones to get promoted to, right? And the VPs are the ones that they're working really hard, they're proving themselves, they're getting the jobs done, and they're getting promoted to that level. And those are our knights, right? Our knights are the ones who are doing the action. You see them on the horses because there is movement in the knights. They're the ones that understand the job well. They went above and beyond their normal duty and got their promotion. So here we have, and you can notice, if you look at these cards, you can see that the knights are definitely about action and motion, and they're different levels, different speeds of motion, right? So if we start with the pentacles, he's on a horse, so he's about to go somewhere, but the horse is standing still. He hasn't moved yet, but there's this idea that movement will happen. And then when we look at the cups, we see that the horse is taking that first step forward. So it's movement, but it's slow. And then we're looking at our Knight of Wands, and this horse is is charging up, getting ready to go. And then our last knight over here, the Knight of Swords, he's already charging forward, full speed ahead, right? So the knights are about motion. And if we look at them in our corporate world, they're the ones that are moving to get things done. They're the ones that are strategizing to help move the department forward. These are the guys that are doing the job. So now we have our queens. And when I compare them to the roles in the corporate world, I like to think of them as the managing directors, right? So managing directors, that's a promotion that brings you to the next level, to a more of a leadership role, right? So managing directors usually can run a department, can run an entire division. They have an expertise in that department that allows them to lead that department. And that's how I see my queens. They have an expertise in the specific field that they're in. So you can say they have an expertise in the suit that they're in. So we know that pentacles are about the mundane, earthly things. It's about money. It's about the home. So this queen has an expertise in that area. And this queen has an expertise of cups, which is about your emotions, your feelings, your intuition. That's where the queen expertise lies. Now we're looking at the Queen of Wands. Wands is about those passions and desires and that quick action to be taken. So that's where the queen's expertise lies. And then we're looking at Queen of Swords. Swords are about logic, the mind, thinking, communication, and that's where the queen's expertise lies there. So similarly, when we're looking at managing directors, they have an expertise in their particular field. And another reason why I like comparing them to roles in the corporate world is because, in the corporate world, you can have MDs, VPs, like all of these job roles can be men, women, non-binary, it doesn't matter, right? But when you're looking at queens, you automatically think of women. When you look at kings, you think of men. When you look at knights, you think of men. But when, we're looking at the corporate world, although, some people might say, okay, it's not necessarily even, but still, you can see that a managing director could be a woman, right? But if you're looking at court cards, in royalty, a female could never be king. No matter what she does, there is literally nothing she can do to be king. And another thing that I find that MDs tend to do when they've reached that level is that they become mentors. And our queens are associated with that, with nurturing. And I find that nurturing behavior can also be found in a mentor. So at this point in their career, MDs tend to look for junior executives that they can train, that they can talk to and mentor and teach them how to get to the next level of their career. And they basically just take them under their wing. And that's definitely a functionality that I see that the queen has. That's part of her duty, is to also nurture while they lead. And now we look at our kings. So looking at the corporate world, I see the kings as the CEOs. So they kind of moved beyond just being an expert in a particular area, a particular division, and now they kind of have a bird's eye view of the entire organization. They are also leaders, but they're leaders on a grander scale, and they have mastered the understanding of how the entire company works as a whole, not just the little pieces. And it's possible that during their career, maybe before the king was a king, maybe before the CEO was a CEO and was just a managing director of a particular division, maybe they moved and they were an MD of another division. and another division. And as they moved around, they picked up knowledge and experience and an understanding of how all of these divisions work. So now that they can put all that knowledge together, and now they can become the CEO of the organization. And that's how I see my kings. Now, if you have no idea how the corporate world works, you can use this approach for almost any industry. Just find one that you're familiar with. So, for example, let's say you're an actor, right? And you're in the acting world. So you can look at the pages as as the interns, as the folks that kind of help bring the food in, and are the assistants to everybody on set. The knights could be the actors, the queens could be the directors, and the kings could be the executive producers, right? Or if you work in education, the students can be the pages, the knights can be the teachers, the queens can be the principals, and the kings can represent the Department of Education. Or let's say, I don't know, you're into sports. I have no idea how sports work. I don't follow any sports, but I did watch Ted Lasso. So I did become a little more familiar with it. So if that's something, if you're more into the sports area, perhaps you can look at the pages as the young kids that carry the water and carry all the equipment. And then the knights could be the actual team players. The queens could be the coaches, and the kings could be the owners of the team. So you can basically think of anything that you're familiar with that has a bit of a hierarchy, that has levels that require your experience to grow. You can just associate those different levels with each of the court cards. And I think that'll just make it easier so that you can do readings in modern times, because, especially living in the States, kings and queens, that just doesn't resonate with me at all. And it sometimes becomes difficult to do a reading for somebody in modern times when you're looking at old school court cards, right? So hopefully this idea is something that you can work with. It'll allow you to think about what are the different roles within your work life and how they can relate to the page, knight, queen, and king to make your readings a lot smoother. So you don't have to stop and pause and be like, okay, what does the queen do? What's her role in the court? After a while, you don't think of it that way. But at the beginning, it's sometimes difficult to associate yourself with the court cards. So definitely for beginners, I find this approach to be a fun one, because you can, bring your everyday life into the meanings and just make it so much easier for you to read with fluidity. So if you found this technique useful, show me some love, hit that like button, and have some fun with your court cards. And if you can think of any other industries, or it doesn't even have to be an industry, if it's just something else in your life that has those varying degrees of hierarchy in your world and you think would work well with associating with the court cards, drop them in the comments, because I would love to add whatever I can to my toolkit that'll just add more layers to my readings and just make everything a lot more interesting. So please add them down there, because I'd love to see what your associations are. Okay, I want to thank Levi once again for this awesome hashtag, and enjoy playing with the court cards. Bye!